Hello and welcome to episode number 12 of the Heroes Journal podcast. I'm Kyle.
I'm Nick.
And we're super excited you're here today. We have a fun topic today. We actually get to read some comments that we asked y'all to make in one of the previous podcasts, episode number 10.
Yep.
So we're going to read those. We're going to talk about a little bit what we think about them because we've actually been talking about them for about a week or so.
Yeah.
And then we're going to do another little call and response kind of thing. We're going to do a little thing at the end, but we won't spill too many beans on that one too early, but
It's true. I do want to spill some beans though,
okay.
because this is a podcast,
It's true.
as we all know. Everyone's listened to a podcast before, but I actually just was on a podcast.
You're on a podcast?
Yeah, and I'm really excited about it. I don't
was
want to toot my own horn. It is a podcast that I listen to very, very consistently every day for about a year and a half, called the Side Hustle School Podcast. It's really popular. It's all about, side hustles and kind of everyday people making income on the side. And it was kind of my first layman's introduction into what it's like to make money outside of your day job in a kind of more normal way. I think as entrepreneurs, you always hear stories about Steve Jobs and Elon Musk, which are such extreme cases, that a lot of the just everyday, amazing stories get kind of overshadowed. So this podcast highlights those. We were featured on this Side Hustle School podcast.
Episode 1004.
1004. It was a couple of years ago. It was a really cool moment because I listened to it and then I was on the podcast. And then one of our customers reached out to us. And I had honestly kind of forgot we were even on that podcast. So much time has passed. So many things have changed. But they DM'd us and they're like, hey, you should reach back out to Side Hustle School. And you should see if you can do a throwback Thursday episode. Because that's the, where are they now kind of thing. Which is such a good idea. So we reached out and we made it happen pretty quick. So I'm not sure when it's going to drop. But it was fun to kind of revisit that world again.
Yeah.
So much has happened. So much has changed.
Best case scenario would be the Thursday following the Kickstarter release. That'd be the best case scenario.
That'd be great. I mean, they're probably top 10 podcasts for the business genre of Apple Podcasts. So they're pretty large, have a really good viewership. So it would be great to drive traffic to Kickstarter, but
yeah. And this one's your actual voice. This one wasn't like a questionnaire.
yeah, it's funny. They have this format for podcasting, which we tried out. And it didn't work for us, but the way they do it is you basically just fill out a form, a questionnaire, templated questionnaire. And then the host of the podcast, his name's Chris Guillebeau. He'll just kind of formulate that templated answer into sort of a story, and he'll kind of read it for the podcast. So, it's very kind of passive on the person being featured, because all you do is fill out a form and then wait. This time, super different. They hop on a call and they kind of interview you. It is still a little weird because they ask you questions and then you just rant about it for 2 or 3 minutes because they mute themselves. So there's no yeah, that's really cool, tell me more about that. It's just they ask you a question and they're quiet. You answer it, they ask you another question.
Yeah.
So super different, but I mean, hopefully it gets some new people interested in our Kickstarter campaign. And, at the absolute worst, it was just cool to be reflective and think back on a simpler time when it was just a side hustle.
It's true.
It's now a main hustle.
It's our main thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've been thinking about that a lot, mostly because their SEO kills.
Oh, yeah.
For a long time, that was the main way people were finding us. Was we would type in the Heroes Journal and theirs would be the first rank thing for a really long time. I think we just overpassed them, but even when I was trying to find us, they would come up first. So yeah, very big, it's a big deal.
They've just done such a good job. Talk about putting out consistent content. They put out a podcast every single day and have been for the last 5 years.
Insane.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
They just, and all the content's really good. I, worked with their back end team. So people that don't really, you never see them on the podcast, but they're really great, super professional, really efficient. I was man, this is a well-oiled machine, just turning out podcasts every day.
Do they have any other products, or is it just the podcast that they do?
I'm not really sure. I full transparency, I kind of stopped listening to them once the journal stopped being a side hustle.
Yeah.
But I do know that they have like courses and stuff, templated things that they sell, like to help you get off the ground, you know, because obviously they're kind of the authority on side hustles.
Yeah.
So it's like you want a side hustle, here's like a template to do that. So the guy who hosts it, he's a pretty good writer, and he has a few books out. I think I read one of them. So yeah, they're just doing a really good job. And I know how hard it is to make a podcast and to make content every day that's super high quality. And they just are just like, they nail it every single day. So huge shout out to Side Hustle School Podcast. And hopefully they feature us here soon.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, it's so, I got something in my throat. It's so interesting interacting with other businesses that are very crisp, right? They're very like, they hit the nail on the head every single time.
Yeah.
And it's like, there are moments where we drop the ball, but it's very aspirational, right? To be that crisp and to be able to operate with such level of efficiency. Mm-hmm. So it's aspirational to at least be even around them, because the turnaround time, we emailed them last week, and like you were being interviewed today.
Yeah, it's Tuesday today. We interviewed them for the first time on Friday, so it was very quick and super professional. Yeah, it's like got a lot of work to do, you know.
Yeah,
but it was great.
Speaking of us trying to be more polished and on top of it, so let's read these comments.
Ooh, the segue. Nice.
King of the segue. So
we're reading comments, responses rather, to the question which we asked 2 weeks ago on podcast number 10. The question was, what job did you hire the Heroes Journal to do for you? What job did the Heroes Journal do for you, and why did you hire it to do that? It's kind of in our own quest to figure out what is working with the journal. That's why we asked that question. We asked people to respond in the comments, and we had like really great, thoughtful answers. So we're going to read some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first one, I think we're going to switch off every other. That's the general plan.
Yeah.
So this one comes from Blue Mel, who is, so if you want to go read the comment yourself, it's on podcast 10. I hired the Heroes Journal to inspire me and push my journaling beyond basic planning and getting things done into a more introspective direction. I also appreciate the nod to whimsy and fandoms. Longtime user of planners, bullet journal, and notebooks, HJ does a great job with inspiration and reflection. There's also a very supportive community. That's great. It hits on all sides, you know?
Yeah.
Hit like the productivity side of it, hit the fandom side of it, and then hit the support side of it, like community.
Yeah. Right? I love the beyond basic planning part of that. I love that she's like, I'm upgrading my planning. Because that's very true to the roots of it. It's like, I was organized, but I wasn't. It was basic. So yeah, I like that. I'm excited to read all these comments and see like if we can pick what aligns. Anyway, the next comment is from Tanya Lumen.
We got Melissa.
Wait, what? Really? I have Tanya next. It's probably organized different.
Okay, you just read Tanya's. I'll just read Melissa's next.
Okay. So this is from Tanya. I have bought lots of journals in my lifetime, but have never completed one or been consistent. I adore the concept of being the hero of my own journey and bringing the fantasy magical world into my life. I actually finished the Wildwood Green Journal and was very excited. But the journal itself is not why I continue using it or why I didn't give up on the journal after just 1 month. In a word, I love the journal and continued on my quest because of the culture. When I met you during Quarantine Quest, your kindness and positivity stood out. Through the Facebook pages and the mentor emails, life became so much better than the latest news story. Your group, your culture lifted me and many others out of loneliness and despair. What makes you so different is your connection to your customers. Keep your journey kind. Thank you, Tanya.
Dang. That's so good.
That was really good. I love that she was like, journal's great, whatever. What really sets you apart is your connection with your customers and your kindness, your positivity.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like the only thing you can really you can control, right? You can control the way that you interact, and you can try to put your best foot forward. And that's something that like we've been hyper focused on for a really long time.
Well, it's a hard thing to establish, but it's also like, it's something they don't teach. I mean, maybe you could correct me. It's something that I feel like they don't teach in an MBA class is like, hey, be kind. Like kindness is your best marketing tool, not like ROI or like ROAS or like look at your margins. It's like, that's all really important. But I like how she really nails home, like you're doing all the right business stuff. Your product's good. It works for me. But the reason I'm still here, the reason I still use your journals is like your kindness.
Yeah.
Which I think is like really, really interesting.
Yeah. That's the thing that I care about the most as well.
Yeah. I think it goes beyond a brand. Anyone can do that. Any person can be kind. And it's nice that kindness is rewarded.
Yeah. So, and as a note to podcast number 11, Tanya mentioned Quarantine Quest, which is, we had that conversation about lead generation and staying away from scummy lead generation.
Yep.
And right, you want a good lead generation is all about giving away something for free that you could sell. Mm-hmm. And it left a lasting impact. And I think that kindness of that particular offering at that time also played into that, but that was super tight. That was super nice.
So Bloomel was all about, not all about, but mostly about getting beyond basic journaling.
Tanya, and support a community.
And yeah,
did mention that.
In the supportive community, Tanya was very much, it's about the kindness. It's about the culture that you guys have created, all that stuff.
Yeah.
What does Melissa have to say?
Initially, I was looking for a guided journal because I work in mental health and encourage clients to journal, but I didn't keep a journal myself. I do like the Dailyo app for journaling and tracking, but I wanted something on paper. When I came across the Heroes Journal, it felt like more of a style/format that I didn't know I needed. I'm never going to be the kind of person that just brain dumps everything I'm thinking and feeling on paper. But with the Heroes Journal, there's just enough space that I can jot things down that are important to me. So potentially you hooked me with the digital journal, but you kept me because because of you guys, yourselves, your journey, and the community you created. Yeah. I mean, so another thing is, and for those listening that aren't necessarily live stream goers, Melissa and Tanya they frequent the live stream. So we probably know Melissa and Tanya better than 90% of our heroes, just because we've spent so much time with them since May.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
But the thing I like about that is that though that's important, I think it's cool to know that we are able to create a relationship with someone, but that's not the only reason why they use it. Like it's still like a good, we're still trying to make a good product.
It's not like your parents using it.
Yeah. Right. It's like,
they're like, yep. My son made this, so I just use it.
And in my head, I kind of like for my own willpower, like I kind of leverage those relationships and I think about, okay, this isn't for me today. This is for a Melissa or a Tanya.
It's way more compelling. Yeah. And it's way more compelling than let's sell more journals today.
Of course.
Like, yeah. So yeah, come for the journals, stay for the community. Pretty cool. Interesting that she specified the digital bundle, right?
That's where Melissa started. Melissa always jokes because Melissa has like 5 codes for the digital bundle.
Yeah.
Because they've been a part of like the last 2 or 3 releases.
True. That's funny.
Can I give this away? It's like, no, it's yours.
A lot of digital bundles.
Bundles.
Cool.
Okay. Are you new, James?
Yes. James is up next. So, James said, I got the Heroes Journal because I have a master's in poetry and spent a lot of time in mythology. I could get really nerdy about lit theory or the role of the limbic system versus the frontal lobe, etc. But basically, framing your goals as a necessary call to adventure is exactly the right framework. That's what proper goals actually are. I hired the Heroes Journal to serve as a daily reminder that willfully accepting the right challenges, finding worth and fun in the journey to get you through the hardships, and sharing your success does literally make you a hero. And I'd rather be a hero than just a guy who got more freelance work in Q1 2021. I'm going to read the last part again because I really like it. I hired the Heroes Journal to serve as a daily reminder that willfully accepting the right challenges, finding worth and fun in the journey to get you through the hardships, and sharing your success does literally make you a hero. And I'd rather be a hero than just a guy who got more freelance work in Q1 2021.
I like it so much. I like it for so many reasons, right?
That's a goat YouTube comment right there.
It's true. Well, so I mean,
because he hit us with the ethos.
Yeah.
He's like, I got a master's in.
It's true.
In this stuff. He's like, I could go on all day about the science behind it.
Of course.
Which I really like. And then he's like, but put simply, he's like, there is something so valuable about finding success and reframing your goal as a quest. And I love the trade-off of like, I don't want to be a guy that gets more freelance work. I want to be a hero. I love that. I love that he is doing two things really well. He's saying like, you guys are tapping into some very complicated, complex things and making it so simple to understand. And when people set goals, it's not really about the goal. It's about something deeper. And I think that our journal does a good job of drawing that out of people, right? It's kind of like that North Star. It's like, maybe your quest is to get more freelance work in 2021, but like, maybe your North Star isn't finding more freelance work. Maybe your North Star is like being a, fulfilled entrepreneur or being like a fulfilled freelancer. Like, I want to own my own schedule. It's like, that's a deeper, more heroic quest. And I love that he like taps in on that. He's like, I don't just want more freelance work. Who cares? I want to be a hero. Yeah. That's like one of my favorite comments ever.
Yeah. And I mean, just from a writing standpoint, just a sheer quality, right? So the thing that James does well, right, introduces the masters in poetry, starts to talk technical, then waxes a little eloquent. It kind of shows the chops, but then brings it back down to just the nitty gritty.
Oh, there's chops.
Oh, there's definitely chops.
Yeah. Shoot us an email, James. We might want to do something with you.
Yeah. Speaking of freelance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that at the end of the day, Zach talks about this a lot. So if you watch any of the live streams recently, Zach has mentioned it a few times, but it's the no regret list, right? So in my head, thinking of yourself as a hero is on a no regret list. You're never gonna be further behind because you thought of yourself as a hero. And but you could say like, I actually gave up too much to get more freelance work in 2021.
Yeah.
So you would look back on that quarter of your life and you would think, oh man, I didn't nail that. But if you frame it as I was more heroic during that time, you're never going to be like upset about that time of your life.
Well, and being a hero it's so cheesy to say, this is going to sound terrible. It's a lifestyle approach. It's not a goal approach. It's so much more like multifaceted. Like, you're not being a hero if you are nailing your goal, but like you're sleeping 3 hours a night and you're eating junk food and you feel like shit all the time. Like, it's like, that's not heroic.
Spicy. It's
like, I swore I did a cuss. The heroic aspect of like the hero's journal, it really invites you to really on all cylinders, look at your life and like try and be as heroic and as kind to yourself as possible. And so I love that distinction of like, you can get everything you thought you wanted and end up like losing yourself, but it's more of a holistic view of it.
Yeah. We switched up. Instead of WWJD, it's WWAHD. What would a hero do?
I hate this joke so much.
I know.
That was terrible.
I'll move on.
Yeah.
This video is essentially the core of why I think this journal is working and why I've hired not only the journal, but your company/brand. All of the content you put out is infused with so much thoughtfulness and care, giving us this insight into your conversations about the importance of intention you're putting into your business and business growth is amazing and really shows that you practice what you preach. That's super inspirational and shows how you apply the concept of being the hero of your story in your lives/businesses. Also, I love the spicy time nerd shit and the passion for the nature of fandom. The nature of fandom is so unique in the productivity/personal motivation space. Yeah, that was very kind, Rachel. It means a lot. I think that the whole practice what you preach, and you don't really know if you're genuinely doing something, if like the fruit that you bear isn't actually representing the thing that you stand for. Yeah. The fact that you and I were on the phone in June of 2018 rather, talking about what we wanted it to be. And the most important thing that we thought of was we want this to be something that makes someone feel better about themselves, not worse about themselves.
Yeah.
We want something that makes someone feel better about who they are versus what they're not. And over the last 2 years, we've talked about it a lot, and it's starting to show that, like, of all the things we've made a product that helps people feel better about themselves. And that's the most important thing.
Yep.
So, and to me, that's a level of success that I wouldn't be able to know until people tell us, like Rachel just did.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. That was a really good comment. Yeah, that was super well said. I love that. That was all the comments on the videos.
Yeah, there was another one about the actual video itself, but it wasn't about hiring the Heroes Journal. So,
gotcha. What should we have them comment this week?
So this week we're looking for a little more like fandom oriented stuff, but not necessarily what your fandom is. We talked about, Bert and I actually talked about this in a live stream, if you were there, about the actual lore of the land of Astoria, especially as it relates to the newest journal coming out, the Astoria Magic Academy, launching February 16th on Kickstarter.
Nice.
We'll put the Facebook event in the description of this video. RSVP. But we talked a little bit about the lore, and there's a little bit of danger around lore as it pertains to our particular product. Just because we don't want to tell the story for you. We want you to be the hero of your story. We don't want to put too many nitty-gritty details into this particular product to make it more about us and less about you. That being said, we have included some lore, little bits and pieces.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have a more private conversation about lore, because I think, with lore, like, once you start brainstorming it publicly, it kind of becomes canon, and you just want to be careful with that, I think. But you bring up a good point. Like, our product and our brand and our whole philosophy really sits on this perfect balance between like pure entertainment fandom and like pure organizational personal development tools. And I think that we're afraid to lean too far in one direction. Like, I think if you lean too far into like the personal development side, you kind of become like everyone else. I think you start to drift into like either way too touchy-feely woo-woo like journaling, or like way too shame-based, like intense hardcore. And if you go too far on the fandom side, it's like you start to run the risk of like, are we even a personal development company anymore? Like, so it's always a balancing act. I think, even writing the story of like the Astoria Magic Academy, for instance, like, it was a really good story, but like, you also have to do a gut check of like, is it still feel like it's about the person using it and about their story? You're kind of making a story that is worth following, but it doesn't take precedent over the user experience, if that makes sense. It's something that you kind of have to, there has to be a story in tandem that is moving forward, that I think is really important. And so it kind of makes lore a little interesting. It's a little different than it would be if it was like the Rick and Morty after show. It's like, tell us more lore, tell us about this character's backstory. It's like, it's not quite the same thing, because remember, it's about you. It's about your story. So all of our lore has to do a good job of supporting our mission of staying balanced between those two things, I think.
Yeah.
Which is why I think we're a little afraid to just speak freely on it. But
it's true.
It is interesting that that's what people want.
It's true. I mean, and that's related to the type of content that we push out.
Yeah.
So people aren't asking for us to put more lore in the actual journal itself, which I think is a pretty good difference. People are looking for maybe some little anecdotes to put the events of the journal in perspective. Might be the best way to think about it.
Yeah.
And that's why, and so far that's kind of what we've done, right? For example, you look behind us, you see this map. You see this map of the land of Astoria. This is the land in which the journal takes place. In this land, there are different characters that you see along the way, in which we've defined.
Yeah.
It's very like top of the iceberg lore, but it's still there. If so, in the comments, what we're of the lore that we have set out, what's something you've enjoyed the most? Like, for me, I love the climbers, the little raccoons, the rambunctious. If you saw our RPG, which is a deep throwback, my character in the RPG was Trashbeard, who was a climber pirate.
Like a D&D game.
Yeah, D&D game. And I really like the climbers. So that's my favorite part of the lore so far. And a little sneak peek, I'm loving Twig in the newest edition of the Hero's Journal.
Yeah, that is the exciting thing about the whole wizard school trope is a lot friendlier to having like a small cast of student peer characters and professors and that kind of thing. So they all have names this time around, and we all kind of thought a lot more about their backstories and that kind of thing, which is exciting.
Who's your favorite character?
My favorite character is the Tortoise. So you meet a Tortoise when you go into the Dauntless Dunes, which is in Act 2 of our current journal. So that's like the desert scene. The desert was really intentional, and so was the tortoise. Like I made the desert scene in Act. I didn't make it, but the idea was to have a desert scene, kind of in the middle of the journal to represent that long trek of like a journey. And there's no mistake that there's like a turtle in there. It's like, the classic tortoise and the hare thing. It's like this part of the journey takes consistent effort day after day, and it can become kind of a slog if you're not careful. But it's just important to remember, like, you're not like in the exciting forest anymore where there's like lush scenery and you have the climbers and like rambunctious, and you kind of have that like novelty that pushes you forward. This is the season of the journal where it's like, it's all about consistency, and it's about, not getting ahead of yourself, not overexerting yourself, but really making sure you keep the main thing. I think it's one of the most powerful allegories in the journal. So
I think so too.
Yeah.
It's also very barren, right?
Yep.
Also, just the actual imagery Ryan uses in the journal, the images themselves. Mm-hmm. I love like you're talking to the tortoise and you're like looking down on this vast desert. It's so like daunting.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Nice. No, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, that is one thing we did with that journal, was like we made these little micro adventures, especially in Act 2, right? It was like the first part, you're in the desert and like you meet a tortoise and he's like, go into this tomb and grab this thing, very Indiana Jones. And like the next one is escorting the troop of penguins through the troll camp. Penguins, my bad. Through the gull camp rather. And it's like, it doesn't always have to be fighting, but like, I don't know. Sometimes when you consider your life a quest and you like embrace your inner nerd and you try and change your life, there's going to be people around you that act like trolls and make fun of you for that.
It's true.
So it's like, that's why I wanted to put an actual troll like army in the journal and kind of like weave through them, with like the kindest, like most delightful little characters I can imagine.
Yeah. Do you think it's too much to talk about the different themes or like comparing the story of the Land of Astoria journal, which we need to do a better job at naming, and then also the Astoria Magic Academy? Do you want to talk about, does that feel too soon with the Kickstarter coming up, or should we? No, like the actual
story.
Yeah, the story.
The allegorical parts of the story.
Yeah, right. Like, I always say this. I don't know if you guys roll your eyes or not, but I always say like the way that I think about our initial journal is like, the places you'll go and the people you'll meet. Got it. It's all about leaving. It's all about setting out and getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. It's all about exploring a new place that you've never been before.
And the humility of accepting like help from allies.
Right. That's like every page in this journal, it feels like you, the main character, is kind of like surprised by this new, it's like, like even in the first daily page, it's like setting up camp and there's like a tree and it's like the eyes inside the tree. It's like, what is that? Like there's always something new. There's always something kind of like, exciting or enticing going on. So you have that experience of like novelty and you're totally right. Venturing from your comfort zone into something very different. That's maybe the main allegory, the main motif of that story.
Whereas the Astoria Magic Academy is a very different motif. It's almost like the opposite in a sense, because you're in one place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're in a school.
Yeah, I guess you leave your comfort zone in the sense that you're going to this school from you's house.
Yeah, there's still a leaving of the comfort zone, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, like so much of the story I think is very rooted in schooling and what it's like to be a student, what it's like to basically try and learn something through, being like experiential and just kind of like failing over and over again, having it kind of blow up in your face and continuing on despite that, I guess. In our first journal, you was running away from like trolls and monster zombie turtles. Like, it's very like adventurous in that way. the Astoria Magic Academy is so much more about like embracing that failure. Like you don't get to just run away when you fail a spell in a class. Like you have to try it again. I think there's a universal experience of school and learning that I think we were trying to capture with the story of this journal and how it shows up, how it reflects in everyone's personal goals. Like I had a terrible experience in school growing up. And it wasn't until college where I fixed the story of like how smart I thought I was. Like my grades were so bad my whole life that I just thought I was like really, really unintelligent. And then I got a planner, got organized. I didn't really work any harder. My grades shot up to the roof. And I was like, I don't feel any smarter, but my grades make it look like I'm way smarter. I was like, this whole thing's a sham. Like I had to fix my whole like perspective of my own intelligence. And it was only through experientially trying different things until I finally found something that didn't make me any smarter, just worked for me. So I think that there's a little bit of that personal touch, personal allegory.
Yeah.
Kind of.
You feel a level of kinship with you in this particular story.
Yep. And then the other thing is like, we've all experienced that first day of school feeling too, you know, at the lunch, like in the lunchroom, you're like, who do I sit with? Like, I don't know.
It's true. Pretty you seem pretty popular right off the bat though. I'm just saying.
What? Who?
You seems,
yeah.
You's pretty popular.
Well, you know, it's kind of like freshman orientations. Like
it's true.
And everyone's lonely. Everyone's looking for a friend.
I guess that's fair.
You know? So yeah, it's kind of fun. One of my favorite allegorical moments in the Astoria Magic Academy, there is a page towards the beginning, right before the second act, and you have you getting kind of the tour of like the little dorms that he's staying in with all of his peers, and the headmaster walks him, you know, to his room and kind of shows him, and then like the next scene is like nighttime, you know, and he's like in his dorm room. Oh, sorry, you is in their dorm room.
No gendered pronouns.
Sorry. You was in their dorm room, and it's like nighttime, and like the fire's crackling, and like the cat's sleeping on the bed, and you was like journaling. And I love this, like, it's such an introvert energy moment. And I'm like, you know, I'm introverted. I love this, like everyone else is sleeping, but like I'm, you know, like I'm up and I'm awake, and I'm kind of like have that anticipation for classes to start. Like my first day of school, like I can't believe I'm here. I think Ryan did such a good job of capturing that feeling in the journal. And, you know, I don't know how that directly relates to someone's like personal goal, but I just love how it's like, it just has that moment of like focus and stillness in the world, kind of quiet. I don't know. That's probably my favorite daily page.
Yeah. And I mean, we do have an artful product.
Yeah.
Which means like an art in a lot of ways is created to evoke emotion. Mm-hmm. For example, I'm not necessarily someone who will like rewatch The Office 100 times. It's not really my personality. But if I really want to feel like joyfully sad, or like not joyfully sad, but like tear up, get emotional, I'll watch the wedding episode of The Office with Jim and Pam.
Yeah.
Just like because it's for whatever reason it just evokes something, and I think that good art does that.
Yep.
And I hope that's the way people feel about these moments that are in this journal of very like this quiet anticipation for this new journey that I'm going on, this fear of what's coming next, but also an excitement that I'll be able to grow or something, whatever it is.
Yeah, I hope so too.
So maybe that's what it is. That's the hope, at least.
Yeah, we'll see how it's received. I think that we have put in, I mean, there's no think about it. We have put in a lot of work into this project, more work than anything we've ever done.
Yeah.
And I really hope it delivers. I really hope that our audience accepts it, you know? And the truth is, like, from a business standpoint, they might not. We might have to go back to the drawing board and do something else. Like, I really hope that this works because I want to make more tropes and be more allegorical and you know, include more fandoms, include more fandom languages that people like to speak, you know, like, but yeah, I mean, this first one has to work and we don't know if it is, you know?
Yeah.
We have big dreams to do mini tropes, but it's like, this one doesn't work. It's probably not a good sign.
Yeah. The way we approached it is very different than the way we approached the Astoria Journal.
Yeah.
The initial offering. I'm gonna start calling it the initial offering because it doesn't have a name. We've been calling it Keith affectionately inside of the
Oh yeah. So yeah, because our journal now is just the Heroes Journal.
Yeah.
There's no title to it. It's kind of like when a band titles their album the same name as their band.
Yeah.
It's like but now that we're making multiple journals, we were like, oh man, we should probably start naming these specific little adventures as if you would, like a book or a movie or something like that. So we don't have a name yet. So the code name, to avoid calling it something that we don't want to call it for a long period of time, is Keith, which is something that we would never call it. So that's like my trick is like, if you're in a creative process and you are making something, you don't know what the name is yet, name it something so ridiculously off topic that you'll never go with that name. So we're calling it Keith internally.
And you learned that from Riot.
From Riot.
Yeah.
Yeah. From a game studio when they develop new characters. It's they give it like a ridiculous name. It's like Keith.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the name of our journal internally.
Do you think that like they messed up with set? They were like, we'll just call it set, and then they just like, let's just add a T to it.
I don't know. I do think about that sometimes.
So this is something I want to say, just because I think the reason it was difficult to make the Astoria Magic Academy was that we were trying to not just do the same thing with different art. It was very important to us to have a new analogy, to have new motifs, a different feel to it, having it not just be the Astoria or Keith plus magic, right? We wanted it to be its own story because we think that that's more interesting. Yeah, it's more interesting than just getting the same story with like a little bit of tweaks. Yeah. But also, I think there's just a lot of different stories to be told, and there are going to be stories that we tell that aren't going to capture everyone's experience. So you want to diversify the types of feelings that you're trying to emote along this goal setting journey. Yeah, this questing journey, if you will. That way it allows for more people to feel like the hero of their story, which brings you back to our mission statement, right? It's like everything has to lead back to the mission statement. Yeah, which will have to change. I mean, maybe not the mission statement, but the idea, it's not like turn your goal into a quest. It still is. Over time, it might be like choose your adventure, like choose your goal and then choose your adventure, like something like that, to where it's more about what kind of analogy do you want for a goal? Like, pick your analogy. Yeah. And it's almost like I do think that the tropes themselves do some of the heavy lifting for that. They do some of the heavy lifting of the motifs. Like part of speaking the universal language of stories, you get into tropes, and everyone knows tropes differently. Like you talk about like a kung fu trope, and it has to do with like self-discipline, like respect, like respecting your elders, like, right. Like all of these kind of common motifs you see among those storylines and so on and so forth. A Western has its own, a wizard school has its own, a high fantasy kind of has its own. And so I think it's important to pay service to the fandoms by including those motifs in it. It just so happens that the nature of story reflects life so accurately and so well that those motifs are also reflected in the goal journey that we all have. Yeah. Yeah. Well, because these stories come from different cultures as well, right? Like you think about a martial arts related journal, that's going to be mostly Eastern Asian descent. Yeah. And like familial ties are extremely important. Exactly. In that culture. Yeah. Which I think also just allows people to feel more at home with a certain trope. And I mean, at least a lot of the talk track that we've had is the reason we're going to wizard school is because we know a lot of people love the idea of being a wizard, like a wizard school. We say that magic is the ability to change reality, all of these things. But also what if someone's vocabulary is Little Wizard Academia, and it's not Lord of the Rings? Right. Yeah, exactly. And if so, we have to make, if our goal is to have as many people become the hero of their lives, we have to then speak that language. Exactly. Yeah, because we have already over the last 2 years gotten so many comments of like, make a Harry Potter one and I'm in, or like, man, I just wish that this was more like Harry Potter. Like, and so I hope that those people feel paid off. I hope that those people feel like it's like, yes, this is the one I wanted, and I hope that we can continue to make those things like and have them allegorically make sense
with the Gold Journey. Because I mean, not every story does, but I think most of them do in some way. So yeah,
I would also love, this is like Kyle's selfish, I would love to be a little bit like spread the word of different fandoms. Let's say like, so for you, your predominant fandom, you're like if we're doing like an Enneagram, you'd be like Lord of the Rings, Wing, Harry Potter. Right? That would be your fandom.
That's pretty good. I think you're onto something.
But there are all these fandoms out there that are so great and they have all these really great messages in them.
Yeah.
That it's like we get to show someone like the joy of some of these fandoms that they wouldn't normally interact with because they're so Lord of the Rings, Wing, Harry Potter versus something else.
Yeah, I wonder if there's like a reason or a way to like cite all the sources. Like, I don't know if that's too over the top or if that like gets you in legal trouble or something, but like, just be like, hey, we made this journal with like these 10 fandom references that we love. And we like watch them and try to include elements from them to kind of make this like conglomerate of like a story that is like vaguely representative of like that whole genre so that you can enjoy your goal quest. Like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a jumbling of words that I just said, but I don't know. Maybe that's too in the weeds.
That was a jambalaya of words.
A jambalaya of words. Yep. Coming in June. It's the Louisiana Journal. The jambalaya.
Does jambalaya have a lot of ingredients? Jambalaya just feels like
idea.
Jumbling. You know, that's why I put it together, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's actually pretty simple to make a jambalaya. I don't know.
I have no idea.
Anyways.
I don't think there's a lot of jambalaya here in Seattle.
But yeah, I would say. So do you want to stick with the initial comment, your favorite piece of lore, or do you want to challenge people to comment their Enneagram? What's their fandom? What's your are you Star Wars, Wing, Star Trek? Do you stay all space?
It's a pretty nuanced question because you have to understand the Enneagram pretty intently. And
I guess that's true. Never mind.
So that's the bonus question. Baseline question would be, let us know your favorite piece of lore from the journal and why. And then the bonus question would be, what's your fandom Enneagram? Is that what you called it?
Yeah. I think mine would be like Wes Anderson, Wing, Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Which is really weird. It's there's probably a lot you can say about my personality.
There's some interesting commonalities between those two.
I guess it's fair.
They're both like very OCD.
Very.
I think you just diagnosed yourself with OCD. It's like they're both like super clean, like very precise. Yeah, there's some interesting parallels. So you're already learning. Look at that.
Look at us. Look at us.
Your fandoms will teach you a lot.
Your fandom Enneagram. Maybe we'll have to copyright that.
Yeah, maybe that's our next cool piece of lead gen.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
We would have to give it away for free and it have to be quality enough. But I've taken so many personality tests on Facebook. It's incredible.
I think it'd be kind of fun. Like, people would really get upset that love the Enneagram, but whatever.
Anyways,
we'll see.
This is fun. I want to try and include at least twice a month, so every other week, reading comments. That was really enjoyable.
Yeah.
So if you have some comments you want us to read, comment on this your podcast.
Drop a comment. You guys already know the criteria. So this will be coming out this weekend, which is
Saturday.
Which is, what day is that? The 5th? No.
So today's the 2nd. So 3rd, 4th, 5th would be Friday, 6th.
So it comes on the 6th. There's one more week after that, which would be the 13th. And then that Tuesday is launch day. It's when we hit the big green launch button, and it's time to backer the Kickstarter. So there will be this podcast and then one more.
Next podcast is going to be really big for us pitching it because people watch this for Valentine's Day. People watch the podcast on Valentine's Day with their partners.
The special Valentine's edition of the Heroes Roll podcast.
Okay. But yeah, we're coming up on it. It's pretty exciting.
I know. We still have so much work to do, but we're definitely inching closer. Compared to where we were last week, we're a lot farther.
Yeah, maybe we'll for preparation for next Saturday's podcast, we'll just pile up all the beans that we can and just spill just loads and loads of beans next Saturday.
If you love spoilers, that is the podcast to listen to.
Yeah, because we can talk about it. Zach's not going to be here and he's not going to be telling us to stop spilling beans. We're just going to let it all go.
Spilling all the beans. So,
anyways, that's the live stream reference. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you watch on podcast, thank you so much. Go ahead and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yep.
And if you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and, if you want to, like this video, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
Sounds good.